If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, welcome to Why Write. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of learning why writers are writing and learning what they're writing also. Today, I have a friend and guest that's on Zoom. She's in Westfield, Massachusetts, and her name is Sue Dutch. And Sue is a retired professor from Westfield State College, and she's an ongoing teacher sharing her love for writing with others. She does a lot of rhyming prose and memoir writing that shares her life journey. I have her books here on my set because I have read two of the three. She has a memoir about searching for her brother Eric, and that was her focus for a long time, and we're going to talk about that. And that book is called Everything That Can Be Done. And then she has several poems that she's written, and she's been published in different literary magazines and newsletters, which has two books. And this one here is The Cry of the Loon, and she also has another one called Poems of Nature. And it's really exciting for me to have Sue on the show today because we have not seen each other in person probably in, I'm going to say a year, maybe. I'm not sure. So, Sue, thank you for coming on the show and welcome.
Thank you, Angela, for having me.
Thank you. Sue and I go back, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I don't
A
know.
long time now. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been writing at the Springfield Museum in the Creative Writers Group. So I've heard a lot of her writing, which is in her books. And, Sue, I have always been impressed with, your poetry for sure, because, when we're at the Springfield Museum, which is also the host of the Dr. Seuss Museum, some of your poems, I feel like you are Dr. Seuss when you're writing because of your poetic, just the cadence of it. Did you start writing poetry before you started writing prose?
No, I've been writing prose since I was 5 years old. And the poetry, I don't know why that started. I started it mostly because a poem just came into my head one day and I wrote it down and I read it to the group in at the museum, our writers group, and everybody seemed to like it. And so I sent it off to a publisher, and they were going to print it if I could write five more poems. But I really am at that time didn't consider myself a poet. I just thought that was an odd thing to happen, that it just popped in my head, and I didn't think it would happen again.
Yeah, I think
So
that's the great thing about writers groups. Like when we meet and we get some sort of prompt and then something comes up.
yeah, exactly.
So you've been a teacher or you've been a professor at the college level for several years. And can we talk a little bit about what you have been teaching there and why it's so important for you to teach kids, adults?
Well, yeah, mostly adults. Uh, well, I went to school for a long time and learned a lot of really good information about psychology, and I thought that it had some relevance to the real world and that it would be useful to people to know about it. So I had the pleasure of teaching, I think it was for 38 years, and I appreciated the students and their questions and their willingness to learn.
Well, I can see why you became a professor because you definitely have the curiosity of a student, especially, when you've gone through something so, I'm going to use the word traumatic as what you've went through in writing your memoir. So I want to jump right to the memoir writing because a lot of people who do watch the show are looking to write their memoirs and then they're wondering, how to begin. And, your memoir is a specific, like point in time. Like some people, think they're writing, from birth to death. I mean, which is more of a biography. But you're writing about a very specific time in your life, and you do it in a beautiful, fast-paced way. Like, I mean, I read this book in like, not even an hour.
Wow.
Because I just needed to know. And so, and I don't want to give away the whole story of it, but it's like your brother Eric went missing. He was an adult. And you became an investigator. You became your own detective, working alongside the police and working on your own. And I'm just curious. My biggest curiosity is when you were writing this memoir, did you document things then, or as you wrote it, was the memory coming back for it?
Both. At the time, I took notes and gathered lots of information from police reports, from Eric's medical and behavioral records, and I also went to the public library in Middletown, Connecticut to do some research. When I wanted to write about the train derailment, we were told was prohibiting a search of his body in the Connecticut River.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, I know when people are writing their memoirs and it's about a specific time, it's easy. I'm going to say it's easy. I mean, it's still work to go to the library to find out like what the current events were at that time to make sure you keep
Exactly.
it, authentic to the story because you want to make sure that you have the facts that are correct. But when you're writing something so personal about, your own emotional status at that time, when your brother
Right.
has gone missing and they're saying, okay, he, whether he's alive or he's dead, you don't know, and you're walking, his path where you think he may have last been, which the police have too. Sharing that whole journey, how emotional was it to go back to
Oh,
revisit
well,
it?
to give you a sense of that, uh, the search for my brother Eric took place 30 years ago, and it took me about 27 years to have the emotional distance that I needed before I could revisit those memories and write the story. So I
Oh,
just began writing everything that can be done about 3 years ago.
that's amazing. When you decided you were going to write the story, did you do an outline first or did you just start writing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I just started writing. I don't think I had an outline at all. It was when I started writing, it was for me and sort of like therapy for me. It wasn't going to be a book for anybody else when I first started. So it was just sort of what I remembered, and then when I didn't remember something, I would look it up in the records. But I mostly just wrote from the heart.
It's definitely comes from the heart for sure. And I mean, my heart was racing as I turned the pages to say, where is she going next? And how I just wanted, like you, I was put in your shoes wanting to know where he is and what the police were doing and what they weren't doing. And then of course, you do know that they were doing everything that can be done. So, I mean, the title is very appropriate, which how did you come up with that title?
Well,
What
that's
what
exact.
line stuck out?
Well, it's what the police when Eric first went missing, and I after a week I called the police and asked them what they had done to look for my brother, and their uh, response was everything that can be done is being done. So it had to be the title. There was just no question that that had to be the title.
But did you feel they were doing everything that needed to be done?
Well, as the book points out, I was very disappointed at what they had actually accomplished. And so, but still the book title seems to be appropriate because it is what my family and his and Eric's friends actually ended up doing. Just about everything that could be done was done by the end of the book.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the story too, because your brother did suffer from some mental illness, and he was he living in a group home?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was living in a group home at the time that he went missing. So of course, you have this, your adult brother who, goes missing. But what I found interesting is how you went to his room and like discovered how there were pills on the floor. So he wasn't taking his medication. He was hiding them. And that was something you discovered. And it made me so mad because I was like, you're living in a group home. Why aren't these people making sure he's swallowing the pills? How are they not inspecting his room to make sure that there's no hidden paraphernalia of any kind? And number three, why didn't the police find that out? Like that was something
Well,
you did.
yes. Well, those were questions I asked myself, and have to say that I was incensed, as I think I say in the book, um, and uh, and I asked those exact same questions. The thing is angry as I was, I did say something, but I had to also, really walk a balancing line because they were also the people who I needed to help me, to help my
Yeah.
family find my brother. So I couldn't really come down on them too hard at the time because I couldn't alienate them.
Yeah, no, I totally could feel that. Like you were very nice to them, and I was so angry at them. I wanted to just yell and scream and say, no one's doing their job, you know? I mean, who was watching him? And, he's in a safe place. And, I mean, for people who have had, whether a sibling or a child or, a parent, wander off and become missing, I mean, these are, things that, you do have to look at, especially when someone's on medication, because you're like, okay, were they, in their right mind, when they walked off? Were they walking off because they were planning on, running away, or, what it was? And you definitely had this, I'm going to say, the intuition and the sixth sense of where to look all the time.
Well, I did have some help of people suggesting things for me, which I did not, talk about too much in the book because, I tended to keep small details out. So I didn't come up with all these things all the time by myself. I think I mentioned that the um, Center for Missing Children, the national thing that's on um, a television. I'm trying to think of the name of
Yeah,
it.
I can't think of it right now either, but I know
Uh,
what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, the Ch Mil Missing Children's
Yes.
group. They when I called them to help me learn how to search because I had no idea how to start, they were very helpful in giving me a list of things that could be done, and I did everything that they suggested.
I mean, this was, not quite a full year, but it was a long
Uh,
year of your life.
363 days, but who's counting,
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, I want to point out it's not a year, but it was a year for sure. And, the fact that, and it took 27 years for you to be able to sit down and, I'm going to say, like, calmly, relaxedly, and in a healing way, write the story.
Exactly.
Um, do you feel that you're at peace with his passing now that you've
Much,
written the story?
much more so than I ever was. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
I've dedicated the book to my brother and talked about how I felt, how courageous he lived. His life was very courageous.
I
Yes,
am so impressed that you published it,
thank you.
like, because you said you were writing it for yourself, but you took the step to publish it, which I know that this book will be helpful to so many people, which is sad to say. But I mean, if someone, just to build the awareness of what to do if someone goes missing, like you've definitely
Yeah.
laid down some footprints for sure. So it took you about a year to write and edit it, and
Oh no, 3 years. 3 years.
excuse me.
It took
Okay,
me.
so well, I'm like adding up all the time now. But when you decided to publish it, what was that feeling like?
Well, like I said, I wrote it for myself, but then, as you just said, I realized that it could be useful for other people as a how-to guide if they ever needed to conduct a missing person search. Of course, things are very different now.
Yeah.
Um, when Eric went missing, there were no uh, cell phones or social media, so it was more difficult then than it is now to spread the word. And we're seeing an instance of this right now tr in the tragic case of Nancy Guthrie that's now making the national news.
So, yeah, you published this book, and now everybody in the world has an opportunity to read and understand not only your story, but help them to resonate with something else that's going on in the world. And it's a beautifully done book. I love the cover. But I want to talk a lot about your poetry too, which I
Oh,
haven't read. Your first book. I mean, I haven't read it in hand, but I know I've heard it when we've been at the museum. And
yes.
you are a lover of animal companions and nature, so a lot of your stuff comes out with that. And do you have your first book to hold up?
Yeah,
That's
I do. I do. Can you see it okay?
And that's, yep, Poems of Nature. And, it's so pretty because you have the Poems of Nature and you have the Cry of the Loon. So, of course, both of them have, the nature and animals and ducks and, cats or whatever in it. But, when you put together these poetry pieces and each one in the book is, takes over like one page, did you come up with like an order to tell them in, or did you just compile them and say, okay, this is the order it'll be published in?
Oh, no, no, no. I spent a lot of time trying to decide what order to put them in. Um, I belong to some uh, other writing groups online now. I can't continue to go to the museum because most of that is in person.
Yeah.
But I came across some other ones online. And let's see.
So with your
After,
poems,
so I've learned some, yes, I'm sorry. I've
no,
learned
that's fine.
that I've learned a few things from other people in the group, and I have to tell you that selecting the poems and putting them in order was the hardest part of publishing a book. It forced me to look at the poems in a different way, a way that a reader would look at them rather than how I saw them. And from the groups, I had learned that each book of poetry should have a theme to it and that the order should make some sort of sense. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I just experimented, especially with Poems of Nature, which was my first book.
Yeah,
Now,
and did you cut any out of the book, or did you make sure you put them
well,
all in? Because
I,
selecting your
I'm
babies is hard.
sure is. Um, well, I didn't want the books to be real expensive to buy, so I kept them to a small number. And when I decided, I took my favorite ones about nature. And when I got to a number that would make the book too long, I cut it off. That was difficult. But I found the first book, Poems of Nature, was the most easy to organize because most of the poems are about the seasons or the months of the year. So it just made sense to put them in some sort of chronological order. So the only thing I had to do, and that even wasn't easy, was to choose where to start. Now, you might think you start with January, but because most people don't like the cold, and I wanted to start with a poem people liked, I started with summer.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, you want to grab your audience right in the beginning. It's like, oh, in the dead of winter, it's so cold. You're like, no, I don't want to read this. I don't want to read about how cold it is. Uh, would you like to? I would love for you to share one of your poems. And I know that some of these poems
Oh,
from this book, especially because they're seasonal, you have submitted them to, magazines and newsletters and things like that where people have published them. And, can you tell the audience a little bit about how you found places to submit to?
well, most of my publications outside of my own books has to do with very local newspapers, newsletters, and things like that. So mostly what I do is I go around the different local towns, the surrounding towns, and collect the free newspapers from senior centers, from, different establishments and stores. And I look at them, and if they publish poetry and it seems to be the kind that I write, I look on their websites and find out where to submit work. And maybe I shouldn't tell my secrets, but if the newsletter doesn't publish poetry, I'll send a cover letter acknowledging that I know that, but asking if they would consider publishing a poem of mine. And I've gotten very good results that way too.
Yeah, that's really nice because I mean, it is a lot of people are like, searching, where do I submit? Where do I submit? And it really can be as easy as your backyard. I mean, you just start off in your own neighborhood and then it builds from there. Because I know you've done things with the Right Angles Conference and, not only published but presented there, which is really great. And
Right?
then, you've been in, and I wanted to grab the book because I always forget the name of it, but Southwoods Magazine. And I know that they do, publish a lot of prose and poetry. So, it's great that, you've at least shared that. So yeah, now that you've shared where it went, let's open one of your books and read one because
All right.
I want them to
All
hear
right.
this because I love listening to you read your poems.
Thank you. Well, I decided that I'd get an appropriate one for the season. So I decided on Snow Day. It's about what children do when school is closed for the day because of a snowstorm.
Oh, well,
A
that's
winter
exciting.
storm. A winter storm raged through the night and left behind a world of white. Grown-ups rise to move the snow, for to their jobs they still must go. When children wake and look outside, their sleepy eyes will open wide. Thrilled that it's a no school day, they'll want to hurry out and play. But first they must contain their zeal till they have eaten day's first meal, and bundled up in warm snowsuits with hats and mittens, scarves and boots. Some will make a man of snow, and on its head a hat bestow. Others with their bodies make angel outlines in their wake. Some in forts or igloos lie for shelter when the snowballs fly. Others climb to top of hill and sled or ski back down with skill. Some will etch neat figure eights as they glide across frozen lakes. For others, pucks and sticks suffice to play some hockey on the ice. When daylight's done, the children's tread homeward bound with cheeks of red. There they'll sit by fire's glow, sipping cups of hot cocoa. When good nights have all been said, and the children's tucked in bed, they'll dream about the day that's done and all the snow days yet to come.
I love the cadence and the rhyming, and I love the storytelling. Like some poems, and you have such a story in there. It's like a children's book in that one story. It's very vivid. You can picture it all. I can see you taking just that one poem and making it into a whole children's book because you can see all of
Yep.
that. And I mean, and I know that when you write, it kind of comes naturally to you. I mean, some people it doesn't come as natural to have that cadence and to have the rhyming to it. I mean, sometimes you have to reach for the rhyming word.
Yes, for sure.
What is the hardest part about writing for you? Or what is, and I don't want to say the hardest, what is the best part about writing for you?
Oh, the okay, that's different. Okay, the
Yeah, the
best.
best part. Unless it's easier to say the
Boy, that's
hardest.
tough. Well, that's a tough one. There's a lot of good parts. I like the creation. I like to create, see something. See, I taught for 38 years and I didn't see tangible results. I don't have a statue that I, made or a painting that I made.
Right.
I had nothing really uh, concrete. And so what I really like about writing is that I have a product. That is really one of the big things that I like I'm very proud of my books. I like holding my books because it shows that
Me too, they're
I
my
created,
babies.
yeah, well, I created them exactly. And I think that I guess if I had to say the most, that would be number one. But number two is pretty close though, and that's sharing them.
Yeah. No, and I totally understand. I mean, every time I release a new book, I tend to carry it in my purse for about a year, and I go, "You want to see my new baby?" Like I have to pet it, and it's like I have to carry it like it's a newborn. And even when it's in the writing process, I carry it around in my bag all the time. Like I can't get rid of it yet. I'm pregnant, so I have to carry this pregnancy with me. And but yeah, sharing it and knowing that someone's enjoying what you've written, is just so rewarding. And there are hard parts and challenging parts about writing. I mean, whether people get writer's block or whether they just don't know, how to start writing. Which I mean, obviously, it's a good example of your brother's your memoir about your brother taking 27 years to sit down to actually do.
Yeah.
And
It
and
that's a long time to have to,
what
I was very, very, it was a very trying time and it just, and not only that, but I was very busy and very exhausted after the search. It took everything I had because I continued to, to work full time and to commute down to Connecticut, at least weekly, sometimes more. So I was physically exhausted. I was mentally exhausted. Um, I just had to have time.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did take the time to do it, and I'm glad that you're healed from it as much as possible, even though I know you miss your brother, but at least we know that he's in a safe spot. He's been found um, physically, but the story is amazing. And anyone who's gone through anything as tragic as that, I think needs to tell their story, whether they write it or verb it, because getting it out of you to help someone else is really important. So, can you tell everybody where they can find your books, the nature poetry book and the Cry of the Loon, and everything that can be done?
Amazon in both soft cover and in Kindle.
Oh,
And if they would like a autograph copy, they can, anybody who's interested in that could contact me through Messenger on Facebook.
okay. All right, I'll put that link in here with your Facebook page in here so that people can go and message you, because getting an autographed copy is always exciting to add to the collection for sure. And for me, I've been so blessed to hear the author sharing her poems for so many years, and I'm so glad that they are put into a book for everybody to hear it. So, and your poetry really is for all ages. It's not. But I mean, I'm not going to say that this book isn't for all ages, but I feel like it's more for like an adult to read, just because of the
Yeah, I would
case
think so.
study. I'm going to use the case study. That's a terrible thing to say, but it really is a
Yeah,
case study of your brother who went missing and how you followed the case and tracked it all down.
right.
Well, thank you
Well,
so
I hope,
much
yeah.
for coming on this show. I really appreciate it. I hope that everybody's going to run to Amazon or, buy her books. And you know what? After you read it, like I'm starting to say, like, leave a review, because this is how authors, move up in the charts and stuff. Leave a review on Amazon. Give her a 5-star review. Tell her what the book meant to you. And then, in this world of social media, post a picture and be like, hey, just read this book. It's a really great story. I recommend it. Because that is, how the ball is played when you're an author. It's all word of mouth, and it's all how we spread the word of mouth about our books, and it's definitely a book worth reading. So, Sue Dutch, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody, check out her books. And of course, subscribe to yWrite on YouTube, because, I want you to return every week. And whether you're watching this on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or your local cable access channel, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Because, because I have an audience like you, I am able to do this every week. And, we are over 120 episodes here. And just meeting each one of these writers and their authors and finding out their journey, really is inspiring, not just, for me and the author, but for you, the listening audience, because you're learning about different books to start reading. And if you're looking to write, you're learning about the process of how to write a story, whether it's poetry, whether it's a memoir. And, today we talked to Sue Dutch about, writing poetry, and she shared her poem of the snow day. So, it is, seasonal, and, whatever season you're watching the show in, today I'm going to give you a writing prompt about seasons, and hopefully maybe you'll break out into a poem. Maybe you're going to write a story. Maybe it will be a story that is a poem, like what Sue shared with us. So when the show is over, I say set your timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Doesn't have to be all day. I mean, if you want to write for an hour, that's your prerogative. But, set the timer, and I want you to just kind of, maybe look out your window. Look out your window and describe the season that you see. You might want to describe the leaves on the tree, or the snow on the ground, or the flowers that are blooming. Whatever it is, you might see kids running through sprinklers. Whatever you're seeing out your window, start writing that. Tell us the story of what you're seeing in the season, and maybe you can add some cadence to it, and you could have a little rhyming poetry. So that is our prompt today, and this has been our show. Thank you so much for tuning into yWrite. Sue Dutch, thank you so much. We look forward to more poetry coming from you, or whatever you are writing. And I want to thank Studio 954 for making this possible, and all the other stations that play us. So again, my name is Angela Grout, and you're watching yWrite. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank, thank you, Angela.